episode 439 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Reid Ramsey.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to be continuing our Muppet series with a pair of literary adaptations, Muppet Treasure Island and the Muppets Wizard of Oz. Which I don't think is the first. No, we've done other TV movies. But, you know. Sorry, but a big sorry to the listeners and viewers that even though Reid and I are on here, we're not going to talk about Ambulance. We got all of that out in the pre-show.
We've actually already spent about 10 minutes talking about Ambulance.
Yeah, we got on here about 20 minutes ago, and we spent 15 minutes of that talking about Ambulance. And I don't know if you want like a Patreon episode or something, but it wasn't like it wasn't an analysis, it wasn't a critique, it was just us quoting scenes back to each other. Let us know. We will do it. Like, we'll drop everything and do that. Like, I'm completely fine.
Be an excuse to rewatch it. I dare you.
Honestly, that would be good. Like, I wish we could do, copyright and all, but I wish we could do like a YouTube and like have the movie playing and then we're like in the boxes just talking the entire time.
Should we record a commentary for Ambulance? It would just be us going like, "Oh shit!"
We should pivot in that. Yeah, we should pivot to doing commentaries. But it's just like, dude. It would just be that for 2 hours.
Not a lot of analysis.
No, we wouldn't analyze anything. I feel like though, if you had a commentary with Michael Bay, it would kind of be the same thing. Like, I'm sure he would explain stuff also, but a lot of it would just be like,
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. I don't know too much about Michael Bay's like inner life, but what he did was perfect art. I'm not sure he would like analyze his own artwork perfectly, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. All right. Well, I'm going to kick it off with a couple movies. The first one I want to talk about is The Man from U.N.C.L.E, the 2015 adaptation of, well, I guess it's not really an adaptation. It's more just like taking just cues from the TV series from the 60s, 70s, 60s, whatever. But this one, it's directed by Guy Ritchie, who it's just been kind of like in a weird place lately. Not to get on the whole Guy Ritchie thing. I mean, he did Aladdin for Disney, and then it's just like done these like really, really just strange, but like not very marketed movies, like Wrath of a Man. There's one, I guess, coming out this year called Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. I tried to watch The Gentleman. Reid, are you a fan of The Gentleman?
I thought it was okay. It's not among my favorite Guy Ritchie's.
I tried to watch it. I got bored. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Man from U.N.C.L.E came out in 2015. Stars Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer and Alicia Vikander. And it takes place during the Cold War. It's a spy movie. There's like this like criminal organization that's going to use nuclear weapons. And because that's so dire, they have to team up the United States and the Soviet Union. You have a CIA agent played by Henry Cavill, and then a KGB agent played by Armie Hammer, who have to use Alicia Vikander's character, who's connected to like through blood to this criminal organization, and stop the bombs. And yeah, I remember kind of being agnostic to this when it came out in 2015, but I've seen folks kind of reappraising it on Twitter and Letterboxd and places like that, kind of going, actually this is better than, especially like the marketing and that kind of stuff lent it to be. And it is. It's really solid. It's such a weird, it's a very weird spy movie for like this period, because with spy movies it's kind of like you've got like Bond and Mission Impossible, and those are very like like it has a very set aesthetic in place where like the action is at this type of level. Like Bond is kind of, it's always being reimagined. The Daniel Craig James Bond movies very much are like indebted to the Bourne movies. But I've also kind of morphed as well into looking at, also paying attention to like John Wick and Mission Impossible in terms of just the action kind of landscape. And then you have Mission Impossible, which is, as Reid and I were talking about before we started recording, is just, the trailers for that are just Tom Cruise doing an insane stunt. And that's what you go there for, is just to watch awesome set pieces. And this one, like, honestly, even for Guy Ritchie, who like is known for kind of having this like stylized action, you think of like recent stuff like the Sherlock Holmes movies, but even like Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, like they Rock and Roll, like those have very like stylized, very very like particular brands of the way that he kind of shoots and choreographs the action. And this one is very like action light. Like there's not no action, but it also feels like that's very secondary. The predominant form that Man from U.N.C.L.E is kind of rolling in is just kind of being charming, and like it's very, very, very much built on the like chemistry between Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer, and just like the back and forth that they give. Even Alicia Vikander gets into it as well. Like the three of them together, it's a very talky movie. It's very old school in that way, where it's about the wordplay, it's about the double entendres, it's about like them saying one thing and then later on they're both going for like the same mission, even though they're kind of talking out the side of their mouths before. Like it's all about like that kind of very classic like like the Man from U.N.C.L.E TV show, Get Smart, but even something like like Pink Panther or something like that, in terms of like being less about like the action set pieces and more about the actors really like having to, it's a big movie star movie. And it was kind of bumming me out like watching Henry Cavill, who to me is the best part of this movie. He's super charming, super hot. He like very like exuding movie star, even more than something like Superman. And I'm kind of bummed that he did Superman, because I'm like, honestly, like this is now that they're looking for like a new James Bond, like he absolutely would have been a perfect James Bond, because he's pretty much doing James Bond here. he's very suave. He's at one point he has sex with the front desk girl. He drinks a lot. He's very charming. It's very like Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton era James Bond performance. And Armie Hammer's good too. I mean, the guy's a cannibal, but he's still like, he's charming in this. He's still got his moments. And yeah, I don't know. It's on HBO Max now. And I don't know. I think what I'm describing here, just kind of the lack of action and more being just kind of this classic caper, movie star kind of vehicle. I think that's what stopped me from liking it when it first came out, because you were kind of expecting it to be more action heavy, be more stylized like a Guy Ritchie movie, and it's just very classic. It moves, it's paced pretty well. It drags a little bit in some parts, just because they get a little too bogged down in like people trading allegiances and shit like that. The kind of nice side character that pops up is Hugh Grant, who's kind of, I think this is the start of him kind of doing more character roles, especially for Guy Ritchie, who he's been in, I think, the last 2 or 3 of his movies now. But he plays this British intelligence agent who's also kind of in the middle of this whole scrape. But yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of think it's a good time. Reid, had you seen Man from U.N.C.L.E?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's like definitely worth your time, and I hadn't really thought about it till you were talking. But it does seem like, although on the surface it seemed like the perfect Guy Ritchie movie, the way you're describing it and the way he's like dealing with the stars in it and the action is pretty like antithetical to like I feel like how he builds a lot of his movies, because really the only movie star he consistently works with is Jason Statham, and it's like clear that their sensibilities just like mesh so well that it like makes perfect sense. But here he's like doing real like kind of work outside of his normal frame of reference, I feel like, which is.
And honestly, if I didn't say that it was directed by Guy Ritchie and you didn't know who it was directed by, you would not think it was Guy Ritchie.
Which is weird for one of his movies. Outside of Aladdin, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. Like every one of his movies, whether you like it or not, you know that he directed it. And this one feels very... And it's kind of a bummer because you can tell from the end that they're kind of trying to set this up as a franchise. And it honestly would have been a really fun franchise like to have... It kind of reminds me, honestly, of a movie I championed a couple months ago that came out last year, Confess Fletch, which is another very unassuming movie, but is like clever, is really fun. It's not like overly hilarious and overly actiony, but like it's just kind of has a good, like John Hamm has like a movie star performance. It's just kind of like a breezy movie to take in, and it reminds me very much of the same thing, that because it doesn't have like, it's not like overly funny or overly actiony, people kind of like go whatever, and kind of forget about it. And I'm like, both of those movies deserve like I would watch like 5 or 6 Man from U.N.C.L.E. movies with this cast.
And same with Fletch, actually. I liked that movie a lot. And hopefully that one at least will have like a lower threshold of a budget to kind of like make it easier to make again and whatnot. But it is a bummer we didn't get more Man from U.N.C.L.E.s.
Yeah, because I mean, both of the stars all 3 of the stars are really good. They really work off of each other, and even like the set pieces. You have like the main one you get is when Henry Cavill comes. It's near the beginning. He comes and he's trying to get Alicia Vikander to come with him, but Armie Hammer's also following them at the same time, and you kind of have this interplay between the two of them trying to get away from Armie Hammer's character, and it's not like. It's not like Casino Royale Bond where he's like, jumping through the jungle and like, on cranes and buildings and shit like that. And it's not Mission Impossible where, he's climbing a building in Dubai. But like, it's just kind of like this nice, like it's almost Guy Ritchie, like trying to not be Guy Ritchie, because it's like, he's like, I know how to go through how to make an action scene work, but I'm also not gonna like make it, I'm not gonna make it like a Guy Ritchie one. It's just like this weird push and pull where he's flexing the skills because he's like, I've made these types of, I've made action movies, my whole career, but also is not trying to like overdo it where you feel like, it's like Jason Statham should be there instead of one of these 2 guys.
Right. Yeah, good movies.
So I don't know. If you're looking for something kind of nice, pleasant, it's a good pleasant watch. Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's on HBO Max right now. The other movie I watched is The Sting, very classic movie. George Roy Hill directed it. You got Paul Newman, Robert Redford, Robert Shaw. Charles Durning, for those who watched or listened to the first episode with the Muppet movie. Charles Durning is, the entire time in The Sting, I was like, oh, he's looking for some frog legs in this one. But for those who are unfamiliar with The Sting, set in the 30s, and it's kind of, the movie itself is very much like the prototype of the kind of heist caper movie. You can kind of see like the template for like the Ocean's movies, or honestly, this is like a template. This is like a template for a lot of Steven Soderbergh movies. Like it's very much the template for the Ocean's movies, Out of Sight, Logan Lucky, like all of that. Like I think that's kind of why I had to watch it, because I'm like, oh yeah, Soderbergh has studied this thing, but. The plot pretty much is Robert Redford is this young small town crook. He got a they stole a bunch of money, not realizing it was for this like crime ring. And so he and his partner are getting hunted down. His partner gets killed, and Robert Redford has to go on the run. And so he ends up in Chicago, with this veteran con man played by Paul Newman. And when he gets there, they plan to seek revenge on this crime lord who's played by Robert Shaw, by pulling this very elaborate caper. And it's, get the team together. They're coming up with the sting. They're coming up with what they're going to be doing. Everybody kind of has their roles. Yeah, this is another one, like we were talking about, like a movie star movie. This is very much a movie star movie. Like, it's kind of a movie that I think gets more attributed to Robert Redford, who, let me double check, but I'm pretty sure was nominated for this movie for Academy Awards. Yes, he was nominated. He was nominated for an Academy Award. But to me, I don't know. I really like Paul Newman in this movie. One, he's a little older, little dustier. Still super hot. Like, you meet him, and he has like this. He has overalls on, and kind of like this. What's that? What's it called? I don't know. He has like kind of like the open shirt, and like his hat, and he's just like smoking and like working on stuff. And you're like, yeah, dude's hot. Yeah, what are you gonna do? And like a lot of his stuff is just like him kind of movie starring it, smarming his way through things. Like all of his scenes, all of his work is very much built on, you got to be charming, you got to be fucking Paul Newman. Like my favorite scene of his is part of the sting is that he has to like create this character that Robert Shaw fucking hates. And so they get and they're going to do that by beating him in this poker game on this train. And so Paul Newman is going to play the guy who he's going to go and piss him off and win this poker game. And like and Paul Newman like plays it where he's kind of like this half drunk mogul guy, and like the entire time is calling Robert Shaw's character, who his last name is his name's Doyle Lonigan. He's like mispronouncing Lonigan every time. He like is like swashing his like, because he has like his bottle of whiskey or whatever. His bottle of gin, because he's like, take gin when you go on stings, because you can fill half of it up with water and they won't be able to tell the difference. And he's just like swashing it around and like ribbing people, and it's just like this great he's just owning the room the entire time. It's like this great movie star performance. And it's this movie, like I said, like I described all these kind of Soderbergh movies that this is very much the prototype for, and it plays like that. Like, it kind of just has this clockwork, it feels very, very mechanized, and I don't say that like as a bad thing, but it has those plot beats that it's going to hit. And it kind of, to me, it didn't elicit like a giant reaction, but it very much like the film worked exactly like you assumed the film would work, and you reacted in the way that it very much, it knew what it was doing, and it played to that. But it's on Netflix now. It's kind of one of those like, you got to see him type things. But I don't know. I think just on its own, it's worth seeing. Young Robert Redford, always super good, but like a really good Paul Newman movie star role as well. Yeah, I don't know, this thing. I think this would be a movie you would like.
Probably. I mean, you had me sold at Soderbergh's remade it.
Soderbergh's remade it a bunch of times, and it's great every time. It's kind of like, we're talking about Ambulance. Like in you have these movies that just kind of remake Heat or remake Speed over and over again, and like those initial movies are great, but like just the like the stripping up from all stripping all of those away and just like looking at the parts of those movies are just so satisfying, because if you just follow the game plan, it's always super effective if you do it right. And so like The Sting is very much one of those movies where you strip it of what this movie is and just use the bare bones, and that's what Soderbergh's done a gazillion times, is he just kind of uses the plot beats of that, and it's always satisfying.
Yeah, it allows him to also just make up new zany characters too. So
all right, well, I'm gonna toss it over to you. You have our new release for the week.
Yeah, I am talking about Plane, which I like to yell when I tell someone I'm going to see Plane, because it's just, I don't know, it's so...
Reid's a simple man. He, plane, ambulance, old, that's all he needs.
That's so true. What else? Well, okay. This one has one thing not in common with those two. It just won't be my favorite movie of the year. Unless it's truly all downhill from here. It's the only movie I've seen now. So right now, I guess it's my number one of 2020.
I mean, you already declared last year that Knock at the Cabin Door or whatever is going to be your top movie.
It's got a better shot than most. That seems like the only way to put it. But Plane it's a new action movie from director, I had to look this up, but director Jean-Francois Richet? I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm not really familiar with much of his work. Oh, he did the remake of Assault on Precinct 13. I haven't seen that. But that looks like the only one I'm even familiar. He did Bloodfather with Mel Gibson a few years ago. If you remember when that was released, I didn't see
Bloodfather. Nice.
It's a movie.
Nice Mel Gibson role.
Yeah, nice Mel Gibson role in 2016. But Plane is the new movie from him, starring Gerard Butler, and I had to look up Mike Coulter. They're kind of the two main characters of the movie, but it's really Gerard Butler's movie. He plays this pilot who is flying to Tokyo, and pretty early on into the flight, they're having technical malfunctions. And of course, one of my favorite tropes in any action movie really is like the yuppie. You know, that one guy who accidentally or purposely fucks everything up just because he's not the gruff action star. Like in Die Hard, you have the guy that does cocaine on his desk. And Speed, he's not as integral of he doesn't play a role in the mechanics of the plot, but you have Alan Ruck, and Speed is the dumb yuppie from New York visiting LA. Or not from New York. He's not even a yuppie, I guess, but he's just not from LA. Is kind of the vibe. But in this one, basically one of the higher ups, one of the technicians at the airline tells Gerard Butler's pilot that it is not cost effective for him to fly above the clouds, above the storm, tells him to just fly straight into it. So already you got a good start to this movie because Gerard Butler's just barreling right towards the storm on a 14-hour flight to Tokyo. And the other important information is this also does speed a little bit in the first few minutes, because it's also just it's apparently a very low volume flight in terms of passengers. There's only 14 people aboard, which I don't know what flight to Tokyo is going to have 14 people, but this one, apparently. And then, of course, one of the people on board is an inmate who's wanted for murder, who's being extradited. So he's there, he's handcuffed. That is the character played by Mike Coulter. And then he has...
I like they always got to have somebody like that, too.
Exactly. He has a bailiff or a handler or someone basically making sure he gets to where he needs to go, and this guy's keeping all the other passengers away from him. It's very clear from the beginning you don't need to be near this guy. So basically they're on this mostly empty plane, and then pretty early on is when the plane experiences malfunctions because of the storm. And then one of the coolest parts of the movie is that, in my recollection, it does the plane crash, and sorry if this is a spoiler to an extent, this happens in the first 30 minutes. It does the plane crash in real time. which is like an interesting idea, kind of like the 24, the TV show with Kiefer Sutherland, like that idea. Like, so Gerard Butler's like, how long do we have until our engines completely fail? And then his co-pilot's like 10 minutes. And then from there, like clock ticking, like I'm pretty sure if you started a timer, it would be pretty close to exactly 10 minutes. So like that was a neat moment. And the plane crash is done pretty well. The CGI in the movie is like really, really rough, like really bottom barrel stuff. But the actual like inside the plane as it's crashing is pretty neat. And then some pretty like gruesome turbulence, which is pretty disturbing as someone who flies occasionally, seeing like all this stuff happen with like turbulence. But so basically then they land the plane, and of course they land it in a hostile part of the Philippines on an island that's apparently not even like, it's part of the Philippines, but the Philippine government won't even go there because it's just like run by criminals is the gist basically. So
I don't know if I like that setup, but okay.
Yeah, it's
we'll roll with
really
it.
problematic as it sounds once you get there. But one of the funniest parts to me was as soon as he like successfully lands this plane, and like there's been there's injuries and stuff, and like people aren't perfect, but he successfully lands this plane like a normal landing on a road on this island, and they get off the plane, and at this point Gerard Butler's character knows he's in like a hostile part of the Philippines because like his co-pilot knew for some reason. Whatever, but
oh, did you not know that? I caught a Nat Geo doc.
I know, it's ridiculous. But then they land and they get off the plane, and all the like passengers are just like irate that they're inconvenienced. And I'm like, dude, you just survived a plane crash. You can't at least like congratulate the guy for saving your life? Like they're like mad at him.
You could have been dead.
They're like, why'd you land us here? Like, what are we gonna be here for like days? Like, what is happening? And I'm like, just chill, please. He just like, I know he's not like Sully Sullenberger landing on like the Hudson, but he did land the plane. So they land, and then from there it really like it becomes just like a much more generic, honestly pretty uninteresting action movie. Unfortunately, you have the guy that is wanted for murder, of course, is like a really integral part. They're like kind of a partnership between him and Gerard Butler, because Gerard Butler is just like not very good at fighting in the movie, which is like kind of fun because like you're used to seeing Gerard Butler like kick ass. Like here he's like really struggling, like more like I don't know. It's more like John Wick style. Like he's like struggling to like kill people and stuff because he's like a pilot. He's not trained to murder people trying to kill him, but the guy he's with is, of course. So this guy like is saving him a ton, and it becomes like far less interesting from there. But overall, like I would recommend it for like a good time, but it did not live up to what I wanted it to be, which was like a super fun, dumb action movie. Instead, it's kind of fun. So, no Gerard Butler Renaissance happening from this one, in my opinion. Which would have been nice, you know? I mean, maybe that'd be nice, I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about Plane. It's fine.
It sounds like a January movie.
It fits perfectly. I went with my wife and a friend, and our friend was running late for various reasons, and like we were running late too, so like it had barely started by the time we got in. But my friend was very late, and by the time she sat down, like I leaned over to her and I said, like, I'm worried you might have missed all the plane stuff. Like it all happens pretty quickly.
Are you sure that there's plane stuff in this? Because it seems like we're just in a jungle right now.
You're just watching an island jungle kind of racist movie.
I came here for the plane stuff.
There definitely should have been more plane stuff in this. Would be my suggestion.
Yeah. I'm sure the passengers got over it. You know, it could have been worse. They could have been flying Southwest during the holiday season. So, take what you get. That was just a Delta flight. You know, it's fine. What is the airline? Did they just like make a generic airline?
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but it's not.
It would have been really funny if they were just like, yeah, United. And you're like,
that would have been great.
See, like, honestly, that would be a much better movie is if, like, like if they were on a Spirit flight, you'd know exactly what you're getting into.
Yes. I need to look it up now because I'm sure it was something funny, like meaning to allude to something.
Like, they're like, it's a Spirit flight, so, like, you're getting hit with all this luggage during turbulence that everybody had to pay an extra $35 for, and you have no foot room or whatever. Like, just have, like, some real inside baseball, like, plane stuff. That's what I would have done in this movie.
Yeah, I can't find it. I may have to watch the movie again to figure this out. But I mean, the Rolling Stone review headline was "Plane is the Frontier Airlines of action movies."
Yeah, see there exactly. Like, I'm like it would have been really funny. Like, they couldn't have done it because companies are wimps, but like it would have been really funny if they were like American Airlines and they just like made it, and then they like, curtailed the horror of the plane landing crash thing to what you would also have to deal with on that specific type of flight.
Oh god, that'd be so good. Like all the weird little inconveniences you get from each airline.
If you're a screenwriter listening to this, have at it. That's a free ID. Throw us like a thanks Zach and Reid or something, but like that's fine. You take like I want to see this. So
yeah, honestly, that's not even like a January movie. That's more like a September movie. Give it to me.
All right, well, we're gonna be whisked off to some worlds in a minute as we go to Treasure Island and Wizard of Oz Part 2 after this.
I got cabin fever, it's burning in my brain.
I got the cabin fever, it's driving me insane.
We got cabin fever, we're flipping our bandanas. Been stuck at sea so long that we have simply gone bananas.
We got cabin fever, we lost what sense we had. We got cabin fever, we're all going mad. My sanity is hanging by a thread.
And we're back with part 2 of episode 439 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Muppet series with 2 literary adaptations. The first one from 1996 is Muppet Treasure Island, directed by Brian Henson from a script by Jerry Jewell, Kirk R. Thatcher, and James V. Hart. The film stars Tim Curry, Kevin Bishop, Kermit the Frog, Fozzie Bear, Great Gonzo, Rizzo the Rat, and Miss Piggy. A reworking of Robert Louis Stevenson's classic tale in which the Muppets take to the high seas in search of buried treasure. Young Jim Hawkins is given a treasure map by a mysterious sailor and sets sail with his friends the Great Gonzo and Rizzo the Rat. Among the crew is the mutinous sea dog, Long John Silver, who has his own plans for the loot. Following the release of The Muppet Christmas Carol in 1992, it was decided that the next Muppet film would be an adaptation of a classic story. Co-writer Kirk R. Thatcher stated, quote, "There were a whole bunch of ideas out there, and I was most keen on Treasure Island and a King Arthur story with medieval dragons and knights. In the end, we all agreed as a group that Treasure Island was a better story for the Muppets to take on. Though King Arthur sounds good too." In the first draft, Gonzo and Rizzo were initially written to portray 2 characters named Jim and Hawkins. But Thatcher explained that, quote, "The studio was nervous that they couldn't hold the emotional heart of the movie, so eventually the human Jim Hawkins was written in, and we cast Gonzo and Rizzo alongside him." Future note, Gonzo and Rizzo absolutely could have carried the emotional heart of this movie because the Jim Hawkins kid is super fucking boring. So, about 100 actors auditioned for the role of Jim Hawkins, but Kevin Bishop, who did the very first audition, received the part. Veteran Muppet performer Frank Oz was unavailable for most of the shooting due to scheduling conflicts with his directing career, so fellow Muppet performer Kevin Clash puppeteered his characters on set, while Oz dubbed the voices in post-production. Oz had already participated in a recorded read-through of the script. Clash used these recordings to help prompt his performances. According to Clash, Oz gave him a brief description of each of his characters prior to shooting. Oz described Miss Piggy as, quote, "a truck driver wanting to be a woman," and Fozzie Bear as somebody similar to Jerry Lewis. Tim Curry said that Muppet Treasure Island is one of his favorite roles. In his biography, he wrote, quote, "It was one of the happiest sets I've ever been on. There's a conspicuous lack of ego among the Muppets. What's extraordinary is that after the first day or two, you don't think of them as Muppets. You think of them as characters, as fellow actors." In 1996, the New York Times said, "All this playfulness lends the live-action movie as insouciance that keeps the story amusingly off-kilter. The mood is perfectly in keeping with the notion of the Muppets as contemporary children dressing up and improvising their own versions of classic tales. In this send-up of Treasure Island, there was no compelling heroes or villains, and the suspense is minimal. Most of the fun lies in watching the Muppets diffuse the swashbuckling tale of its scariness by superimposing their own precociously verbal identities onto their characters." And in 1996, Roger Ebert said, "Muppet Treasure Island will entertain you more or less in proportion to your affection for the Muppets. If you like them, you'll probably like this." I think Ebert is slowly kind of getting like, I'm tired of the Muppets. I'm good. On that note, let's talk a little bit about Muppet Treasure Island. Reid, you said you're not incredibly familiar with the Muppets. So what were your thoughts kind of jumping into this one?
Yeah, I mean, I knew we were doing the Muppet series, but I hadn't signed up for any, so when you messaged me last week, I realized I needed to watch some Muppet movies. And so I watched the original Muppet movie, and then I've watched one episode of the TV show, and now I've seen Treasure Island. Is it the original TV show, like 1976, whatever's on Disney Plus?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So I watched, like, the first episode there. But I didn't watch them much as a kid. Like, I was familiar with some of the characters, but I guess I just, for whatever reason, didn't watch them. But I like, really enjoyed this movie. Pretty much for Ebert was kind of right. Like, pretty much for the same reason, like, I enjoyed the Muppet original movie. For the characters, for the wordplay. Like, I think that you can probably speak to it better, but, like, wordplay seems to be, like, one of the biggest staples of the Muppet genre. Like, comedy based on misunderstanding what words they're saying, essentially, or, like, double entendre, stuff like that. And I love that. And then especially here, Tim Curry is just so good. Like, he looks like he's having as much fun as he says he's having, because he is so good in this movie, which is absurd because he's just playing, like, pretty much the Tim Curry role he plays pretty much every time, but he's really funny with the Muppets. And then as you also alluded to, like, with the emotional core of the movie, it feels so absurd, but, like, you really care about the Muppets. You really care about and puppets. It's so stupid, but, like, there are moments, Kermit has some real emotional moments, and so does Fozzie and Gonzo. Like, I mean, you really get attached to all of them, and, like, they're genuinely acting, like, among the story and, like, playing characters. Yeah.
Mr. Bimbo and his finger.
Yes. That's so good. But I like, I think and this is probably true, I guess, to all the Muppet movies, if it's true to Treasure Island, but I really like that, they're not like, that Kermit is the actor in this movie, if that makes sense. I really like that they're all cast within the movie, and that it's not like this is the guy playing Kermit playing that role. Like, I really like that on the title cards, it's like, Captain Smollett played by Kermit the Frog. Like, I don't know, that's a nice, charming little thing. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this one's unique because, I mean, there's in the two movies we talked about so far, the Muppet movie, which you've seen, in Great Muppet Caper, it's a lot of, specifically the Muppet movie, like, that's built on, there's a bunch of human actors playing characters, but it's more like cameos. They're like kind of extended cameo type things. Great Muppet Caper is less so. There's a couple cameos, but there's, like, Charles Grodin has a role. Diana Rigg has a role. In this one, you get, like, Billy Connolly in the beginning, you get Jennifer Saunders in the beginning, and then you get Tim Curry for the rest of the movie. And that's predominantly the most... there's, like, 2 or 3 other pirates that are humans, but that's pretty much it. It's, like, all Muppets to that point.
Yeah, and none of them are, like stunt-casted cameos, basically. Like, the first one
they all fit.
Yeah, the first one I was like, you're just waiting for who was going to pop up next. Like, they're all fine roles, but, like, Orson Welles... Steve Martin, like, you just run down a list of names of people that were popular in the 70s, and they might have been in the Muppet.
The first movie is very much like running through, like, who are movie stars in the 1970s that can pop up in this.
Exactly. Which, I mean, it's better off for that, I think. But, like, this one works so well because it feels like a legit movie just made with the Muppets as actors. And it's so fun. I'm trying to think. It's really... At times it's, like, almost racy with some of, like, the Miss Piggy stuff and, like...
Oh, it's a horny movie.
Yeah. Long John? Like, that is... the way... the line delivery of Miss Piggy saying Long John is, like... That's top tier work there.
Like she delivers the line where, you know, if you got young children in the car, close their ears. But, like, Miss Piggy, like... Miss Piggy, like, sucked his dick, so...
Yeah. It's, like, pretty clear.
Yeah, super clear.
Yeah.
Like, Miss Piggy and Long John Silver were fucking around.
Yeah. But, yeah, super funny movie, completely engaging. Like, you never really feel like you're just watching, like, a kid's movie or, like, completely outside of it watching puppets. Like, I really enjoyed it. My Muppet journey is not ending here on Treasure Island.
Yeah, no, it's, This one was good because this one was kind of more interesting than the previous two that we did, just because the literary adaptations are kind of fascinating because, like, whether it's Christmas Carol, Treasure Island, we're going to talk about Wizard of Oz in a little bit, like, you have those kind of characters in mind of, like, this is what, you know, you expect from Captain Smollett, and this is kind of what you expect from, you know, like the Lion, the Tin Man, it's, you know, stuff like that. But, like, adding, like, the Muppet... So then, you know, even more interesting than, like, having... To me, it's almost even more interesting than, like, having an actor. Like, if you had... you know, if, like, you had, like... We talked about Robert Redford earlier. If Robert Redford was going to play, like, the Lion in a Wizard of Oz movie, like, you'd be like, oh, what's his interpretation of it? Like, that's fine. But to me, it's way more interesting, like, in Muppet Treasure Island to have, like... You know, like, how is Fozzie Bear... gonna make, like, because like the character is half what the character is and half just who Fozzie Bear is, and so, like, they're just these kind of, like, fascinating performances because, like, Captain Smollett is a little bit of, like, what the character is, like, in the book and things like that, but then also it's just kind of like Kermit the Frog by the end of the, you know, at the end of the day. You know, like, Ruzlo the Rat and Gonzo are just there to kind of just be just crazy guys. I honestly, like, they should have just done Jim and Hawkins, because that would have, again, like I was talking about before, like, the kid who plays Jim Hawkins is just the worst. Like, I just get sick of him.
It kind of makes sense that you said that they were originally written a different role, because they do just kind of feel thrown in.
Yeah, they feel very like he's just friends with it, and you're like, no, like... But they don't really have. They're kind of the weird. Even though I like both, they're great in this movie. Their characters are very weird because, yeah, like I said, like, they are very much like just playing Rizzo, and I don't think they even have names. I think they're just Rizzo and Gonzo. If I'm gonna look real quick, but I'm pretty sure they're just playing themselves. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just you know, to me. I think this one is very, you know, I haven't seen all of the I need to watch Christmas Carol. I know it's probably maybe more famous than this one. I think it's a little bit more well known. It gets a play during the Christmas season for sure. But yeah, I think, like, kind of just kind of tossing them into the different literature or just other, you know, movies, things like that, and just kind of, like, getting their interpretation of it. I think this is probably one of the most ideal you're gonna get, because, yeah, it kind of goes by the broad strokes of the story of Treasure Island, but then, yeah, fills it in with, like, kooky Muppet stuff. You know, Tim Curry, like, given like a 12 out of 10 performance. I just love, like there's just, like, moments, like, Gonzo's just such a fucking freak. Like, whenever they're, like, stretching him out, and he's like, yes, oh yeah.
That seems so good.
Like it's just a bunch of freaks.
Which, even that just felt like an excuse to, like, show, like, some more puppetry too, though, because then, like, the next scene he's just, like, waving his limbs,
waving his hands up in the air. You're just like he's just such a freak. I love Gonzo. And yeah, no, it's just I think this is kind of the ideal because you've kind of ditched the human cameos and now they're like humans playing actual roles. And this one again, like you were talking about Tim Curry. Tim Curry's great because, and they've nailed it at least in the 3 movies that we've watched. They don't nail it in the next movie. I'll just spoil that. In Wizard of Oz, we're gonna talk about. They don't nail it in that, but in like Muppet movie. And Great Caper, and in this one, like the human compliments, like the human actors feel very like they're given 110%. Like Tim Curry and then Billy Connolly and Jennifer Saunders before him in this movie, like are all like giving it their all. So whenever you get a human character, it feels very committed. It doesn't feel like a half-assed performance, which is great. I'm trying to. This one. This all. Oh wait, no, it wasn't this one. That actually, no. The fun fact about this one is that Hans Zimmer did the music for this.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I saw it in the credits.
I guess that's like pretty early for him. I feel
it's like a proto. He's preparing for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, which I mean, that's kind of one thing I was gonna say. I think one of the reasons, and you're talking about why this one gets a little better play than some other adaptations too, but I think one of the reasons is like we're familiar with like this story has been kind of deconstructed and redone so many times. Like it's very similar to the Pirates of the Caribbean. It's very similar to like so many movies that have come out since I guess Treasure Island was written in like the late 19th century. But I don't know that many people that are like beat by beat familiar with the characters and plot of like Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. Are you?
To be fair, Mike, my frame of reference is Treasure Planet.
Yeah.
Very underrated Disney movie.
Yeah, which that one's probably a fairly close adaptation. I haven't seen it forever.
It's a good one.
But like I feel like we're familiar with the idea of this story, but not as much with like everything about it. Whereas even like A Christmas Carol, like there's few people I feel like that don't know kind of every moment of the story. So this one too, like while it's like adapting familiar characters, it's not like they can get away with more than I feel like they can with like Wizard of Oz or something else.
Well, that's what's weird about Wizard of Oz, because Wizard of Oz they genuinely they said they based a lot of it off of the actual like novel The Wizard of Oz rather than the 1939 movie. And there's still a lot of like there's still a little bit of rollover, but in terms of like the different a lot of the sets are like very CGI and things like that, but it doesn't look like they're just totally just ripping off the Judy Garland movie. It feels very much like they are kind of like doing for good or bad their own thing. But yeah, no, this one I think yeah, because, and especially like up to this point, you had a couple, like 3 Treasure Island adaptations in movies. I think that's what Ebert said. Like at this point, they've had like 2 or 3 adaptations of movies, and so yeah, I don't think it's like a super familiar plot line. And like pirate movies, as you'll learn, a little bit later with Pirates of the Caribbean, popular. But yeah, no, I thought this one was great. I just hated that kid.
Yeah, I think so what I realized while watching it, there's a stretch of time towards the end where he pretty much disappears. And it's really great. And then he pops back on the ship as they're coming to save them. And I'm like, oh, he's still here. Like I'd forgotten.
Just like aggressively awful.
Yeah, I'd forgotten he was supposed to be there because I was having so much fun with Kermit and Piggy and everyone else. Tim Curry.
Yeah, and that's the it's kind of has the fault of like the bad guy is Long John Silver, but Tim Curry's so fun that you're kind of just rooting for him. And you're like, yeah, you can like kill this kid, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Leave the kid on the island. I don't care. He kind of sucks. We'll just hang out with you, man. But yeah, no, I think I like that also that this one even more so than like the 2 that we've watched so far feels like all the Muppets just getting to to fly their freak flags. Like I mentioned Gonzo being a freak. Fozzie is just like unhinged the entire time, so they're talking to Mr. Bimbo, who's in his finger.
And Kermit
like,
also really can't stand him in this movie, I feel like. Like, he puts up with him because he's like, he's like second in charge. I think he's like...
Well, he's the guy who finances the thing.
Yeah, exactly. But Kermit just, like, isn't there to deal with Ozzy's shit.
Yeah. And so they're great. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones in here.
I mean, like,
Rizzo's pretty... Oh, that's what I love about Rizzo, is I love that they have the stupid... That's not even stupid, just the silly side thing that's not even a plot, but is the other rats who are taking a cruise the entire time.
Yes, on this marooned island, and they're like eating dinner at like a resort there as they're all about to be killed. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah. No, I love, like, just throughout the whole time at the island, you have like this cruise ship group that's also along the way with them. That cracks me up.
There's a really funny, I think it's Fozzie Bear. There's a bit in the beginning where Tim Curry is still, like, pretending to be the, like, cook of the ship or whatever, and he brings in the, like, 100-year-old scotch or whatever for them to drink to toast to the
yeah, he keeps trying to drink it and throw it.
Yeah, he keeps Kermit's like, I'm not permitting any alcohol on this ship with these pirates, and Fozzie's like, oh yeah, let me throw this out the window. And then Tim Curry's like, well, it's always good to toast, and Fozzie's immediately pouring another glass. Like, it's just so good. Like, he throws away like the whole bottle of scotch.
Yeah, and then the rats like come up and they're like drunk because they've been getting hit with the scotch. It's great. No, and then you mentioned before, like, that, Miss Piggy and Long John Silver clearly had a past. Like, it's also just, like, a supremely horny movie. Like, just just a bunch, it's such a freaks movie. I really respect it. Like, just, most out of any of the ones. So, like, you got little hints of it in the last movie on Muppet Caper where Charles Grodin clearly wants to fuck Miss Piggy the entire time. But, like, this one is just, like, pure, like the cuffs are off or on, in some situations, who knows. And they're just kind of freaks. I also love the, like, kind of auxiliary cast, the supporting cast of Muppets, the kind of second tier folks. Just a bunch of nice, like, I guess, I don't know, I guess you're seeing, like, the progression of them through movies or the show or whatever as these kind of go along. But I like the, like, oddball, like, evil crew who then shows up as, like, a lot of them show up as, like, the evil crew in Wizard of Oz, is, like, they're also, like, super fun. I like the guy who just has hair but still has the glasses on over the hair. I like Angel Maria. The ugly guy.
Yeah, and then
the green ugly guy.
Like the band, like, it's Dr. Teeth, right? Makes an appearance. The who are the two old guys? What are their names?
Oh, Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah, they're just like they're carved into the bow of the ship, right?
Yeah, they are.
That's a funny idea too.
No. Well, before we go to Wizard of Oz, yeah. I don't know. I really like Treasure Island a lot. Until we switch over to Wizard of Oz, 3 for 3 on Muppets movies. All right, let me switch over to Wizard of Oz now. Reid didn't see this one because it's it's a bunch to watch a gazillion. I don't blame you. It's a lot of Muppets movies, so I'm flying solo on Wizard of Oz at least for just kind of breaking it down. But this one was directed by Kirk Thatcher, who was one of the writers on Treasure Island, from a script by Deborah Frank, Steve Hayes, Tom Martin, and Adam Goldberg. Film stars Ashanti, Queen Latifah, David Alan Grier, Pepe the King Prawn, Kermit the Frog, Fozzie Bear, Greg Gonzo, and Miss Piggy. Dorothy lives in Kansas with her Auntie Em while dreaming of success as a singer in Hollywood. Her wishes just might come true when a tornado whisks her away to the magical land of Oz, where she hears about a great wizard who can grant your greatest desires. When the Walt Disney Company acquired the Muppets franchise from the Jim Henson Company in February 2004, the Muppets were reintroduced to the public by marketing products and guest appearing on television shows such as Good Morning America and America's Funniest Home Videos. This was the last Muppets production to be produced by the Jim Henson Company once Disney purchased the rights to the Muppets franchise, and they went out on a bad note. Before filming, ABC announced that the production would adapt elements from the original 1900 book rather than the 1939 film, such as the silver shoes instead of ruby slippers. On August 25th, 2004, it was announced that Hilary Duff, Jessica Simpson, and Ashanti, just a murderer's row of early 2000s actresses you would see and stuff, auditioned for the role of Dorothy Gale, but Ashanti had won the part. When asked about how she felt about working with the Muppets, she replied, quote, "I love children, and to me, the Muppets are just like little kids." 7.75 million watched the Muppets Wizard of Oz on its television premiere night in the U.S. It ranked as the 42nd most watched television program of the week, which seems low, but yeah. I don't know what to make of that. So Muppets Wizard of Oz, it's not great. It feels like a TV movie. Like strong, but it's also a fucking weird movie. It's a weird ass thing cuz so the movie opens and it's Ashanti singing and it has a little thing, in the left of the screen. I'm going to get for the YouTube people. The left of the screen when you have a music video. With the name and the song, it opens with that. So I'm starting and I'm is this a movie or is this a music video from the movie? But then it is the movie, and then and then Auntie M and her Uncle Henry something are played by Queen Latifah and David Alan Grier. David Alan Grier is also is incredibly funny though in this. He's only in it for a little bit. Very, very entertaining though. And they own this diner. And the whole hook with the Muppets is that Muppet Star Hunt is looking for the next big star. And what is the and so Ashanti, Dorothy is gonna go and try out for this, but she gets there and it's too late. And the very first time you see the Muppets is her knocking on the door of this bus, and Rizzo the Rat opens it and makes a joke about Girls Gone Wild. And you're what the fuck? But so then a tornado happens with some janky ass CGI. There's a green screen and we're just moving stuff. It was bad. And instead of having a dog named Toto, she has a shrimp named Toto who turns into Pepe the King Prawn, who honestly is a welcome addition to the main crew, because he also is just he's constantly making double entendres, and he's constantly trying to grift something. At one point he has a cell phone out and is pretending to be her agent, and she's that's not even a real cell phone. But she gets to Oz. Piggy plays all the different witches. And then you have Kermit as the Scarecrow, Fozzie as the Lion, and Gonzo as the Tin Man. Yeah, it's a strange. You have this uncanny valley CGI that's going on the entire time. When they get to the wizard at first, they have the apparitions that happened instead of seeing the actual wizard, who's played by Jeffrey Tambor, in a very weird role. But when they're going to see the apparitions in front of the wizard, it's this PlayStation, not even PlayStation 2, PlayStation level vibes of the animation, the level of complexity to this animation. One of them is this dragon, and it straight up looks like a dragon out of Spyro. When Gonzo goes up, it's this kind of hot woman kind of thing, the sexy lady who's supposed to be trying to seduce him, but it looks like kind of a sexy lady that you would run into in a PlayStation game. It feels like something from Morrowind, or I don't know if you ever played on Xbox the game Fable, or Fable 2. It feels very like that. I don't know if I'm not dating myself, but making obscure references. But yeah, anyway, so that it seems kind of that type of video game. And then she morphs while you're watching her into a chicken so that she really seduces Gonzo. Which is a weird experience of like watching this woman in like really bad CGI like morph into a chicken. But yeah, it breaks a little bit. It does break a little bit from, it's not really like a carbon copy of the Judy Garland movie, which is kind of nice. But just a weird movie. Let me tell you the weirdest part of this. So at one point, they're with Piggy, who's playing the Wicked Witch of the West, and they're gonna like have this fight. And so then, I shit you not, they cut to a room in like the real world where Kermit the Frog is being pitched a fight scene by Quentin Tarantino, and like Quentin Tarantino is like describing how they should handle this fight scene to Kermit the Frog, and it's like they're like getting these like the medium shot angles, and like Quentin Tarantino's like getting like really close to the camera, and so you're getting like his like weird long face, and it's just like it's super strange. And like I sent Andrew a message during it going like, why is Quentin Tarantino in this movie? It's like for how amazing the cameo of Orson Welles is in the Muppets movie, that's like the peak. The valley is Quentin Tarantino popping up in Muppets Wizard of Oz.
I feel confident though that that's like why they did it, like because of Orson Welles' cameo. Like 2005's like, I mean, I'm not saying it's peak Tarantino movies, but it's kind of probably peak Tarantino as like a public persona. So they were probably like, let's get a big director to talk about the action, and they just chose the first name that came to mind.
Now, let's see. Now I'm kind of curious. 2005. So that's 2 years before Death Proof. So it was just after the first Kill Bill, or both the Kill Bills. Yeah, it's at least after the first Kill Bill. So yeah, I mean, you know, by that time you've gotten Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, stuff like that. So yeah, you're kind of getting peak Tarantino. It's just a weird ass scene though, because literally like it's like it breaks up what's about to become a fight sequence. To like have him pitch a fight sequence to Kermit. Kermit's just like, oh. It's super strange. But no, the whole thing feels like a TV movie. Ashanti's not good. Like just actively not good. At one point, instead of like getting caught in the poppy field where they like, you know, lay in the flowers and go to sleep, instead they go to a nightclub.
What is going
with
on?
Poppies. They go to a nightclub with poppies. And Dr. Teeth and the gang playing, and they fall asleep, and like Ashanti, Fozzie, and somebody, and Pepe like fall asleep, and then they have to like literally have to drag them out of a nightclub, which is a whole weird, you know, I saw somebody make a comment on Letterboxd, and they're like, yeah, the Muppets go to an opium den in this movie, which is true. It's just it's a strange, uncanny movie. By the time you get to the wizard, like I said, it's Jeffrey Tambor, who seems like annoyed that he's in this movie to a degree. He doesn't have like the Charles Grodin, Tim Curry energy of just like let's like ham it up. He seems like he's better than this, and you're like, no. You should be thankful that you got a Muppets role. But it does, you know, it's kind of interesting when I saw the note that this was like the last Jim Henson production company movie before Disney started like really 100% taking over. And like it does signal like really like the downfall of the downfall of the Muppets before the movies we'll talk about next week, Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted, where they kind of rebrand and reinvigorate the franchise. It feels very much like this is very much a low point before you kind of have to like, I guess Disney was like, yeah, we really got to like get this thing going. when you throw Quentin Tarantino in as a cameo, you know that you've like hit the bottom of Muppetdom.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, it probably just shouldn't have even been a TV movie. I mean, it sounds like they had a pretty like half-baked idea.
It's super half-baked, and like we were talking about before, like the Muppets and the characters. Like in this one, the different Muppets are super, like, they're super fun. Fozzie's the lion; he's great. Pepe honestly is probably my favorite in this because he's just Toto, and like he's like Toto by way of like Jeremy Piven in Entourage. He's just kind of like an asshole, which is fun. Gonzo is still like a freak, and this one, like instead of a Tin Man, he kind of like has like this technology. You get this great scene where like he gets disconnected from the computer apparatus that he's connected to, and then he puts his nose on again because he has to get his nose connected. So then Pepe's like, so yeah, he's like, because Gonzo goes, I gotta get my cell phone, and that's when he grabs his nose and like screws it in, because they make a lot of modern references in this movie. They're very aware of like 2005 technology. And so then like Pepe is like looking at him, he's like, that's a cell phone? He goes, yeah. And then Pepe like grabs these two knobs on Gonzo's chest and is like, well, and like is like rubbing them and is like, what are these? And he's like, those are my nipples. They don't do anything. And it's like this weird, like this kind of weird, like semi-sexual scene that then Pepe just like runs out, but it's like it's such a weird non sequitur where he's just like, those are my nipples, they don't do anything, and Pepe just like stares at him and then like runs outside. But it kind of just captures like that just like weird energy, like weird Muppets energy. Like Piggy, like when they go to the Wicked Witch of the West, she like is doing like a kind of like a fake reality show thing, and she has like the bad guys with her. I don't know what the Muppets name is, but she is like the Italian gangster one is like her husband or her partner or whatever. So he's just like, oh, he's like, no, you're doing a great job, baby. It's like a mix between like James Gandolfini in The Sopranos and like Sylvester Stallone. He's just like, yeah, you're doing a great job, baby. It's just like a weird movie, and I think that's what makes it bad is just like it. You know, you can tell the effort's not there for like you don't even have a lot of the frequent, like Frank Oz is not even like anywhere near this movie. You don't get a lot of the frequent Muppet people. It kind of feels half baked. It feels like they just kind of were like, even like, you know, we talked about Treasure Island feels very like natural. This feels very like Wizard of Oz, Muppets like smashed together. And it does, it's like, it's very, you know, the Muppets have always been like, we've talked about like quips. They make like kind of topical humor jokes and things like that, but it, you know, I think for the most part it kind of works. And in this one, it just it feels super dated. It feels super like, hello fellow kids, you know, like technology is fun type situation. And it just feels really forced for like a franchise that up to this point has been able to kind of weave in, you know, like we said, with the Muppets movies, you have like every 1970s movie TV star involved. Muppet Caper, you kind of have like this, you know, poking fun at the British. You have Charles Grodin just being kind of a weirdo, things like that. And then in Treasure Island, like just kind of like this horny manic energy, but then also like, you know, this adaptation. This one very much feels like there's no effort in it, and they were just kind of trying to cash in, and they didn't try very hard. So,
bummer.
Yeah, I got nothing. Honestly, the only thing I kind of liked it from it was just how like weird of a product it is. Yeah, it's just it's a strange. If you're deep in the Muppets, watch this. If you're not, if you're kind of casual Muppets, I wouldn't watch it. It's not worth it. But if you're like deep Muppets, I wish Andrew or Jesse was on this to kind of talk about that one from their perspective, just because it just kind of feels like all the kind of energy that really like latches you on to to Muppets movies is like just like you can kind of feel Disney just like taking all the essence out of it. It's a very sad affair. But yeah, it's Muppets. You can watch it if you're curious. It's on the Internet Archive. You can watch a pretty solid cut of it. And I'm trying to think if anybody else is in it. No, literally, like Quentin Tarantino is like the third build star.
And he makes one scene.
He has one scene. But yeah, Muppet. I don't know. Overall, it's a very boring like wrap up between the two of them because Treasure Island is far and away the better movie out of the two adaptations. But yeah. All right. Well, I'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary and on Twitter and Instagram at @Cinematary and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/Cinematary. We always got a Patreon series coming up. You know, if you want to come and torture us with something, this is your chance. Thank you to our patrons Cam, Chad Newsom, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for your patronage. Like I mentioned before, next week we're jumping into our final Muppets episode. We're going to talk about The Muppets, which is the Jason Segel led kind of revival in 2010? I'm just doing 2011. The 2011 revival of the Muppets, and that one kind of I think kind of gets everybody. It feels very. I mean, I've seen it before. It feels very like in spirit of like the Muppet movie, where it's very much built on a couple characters kind of following the Muppets like along the plot, but then a lot of like different cameos for people who were popular in the 2011. 2011. It also has an incredible, like a great. Like Chris Cooper, who plays the villain, is very much like in the Tim Curry, Charles Grodin element of like he's just gonna fucking go for it. His name's Tex Richman? Yeah, Tex Richman, and he's super fun. But we're gonna watch that as well as the follow-up movie from 2014, Muppets Most Wanted, which is the last of like. Well, not the last Muppet movie because they had Muppets Haunted Mansion that came out a couple years ago, but the last of like this brand of the Muppets on in theaters and stuff. So, which sounds like it's gonna be annoying because between Ricky Gervais and Tina Fey, that's just a lot of like energy. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. Those are two very different energies, and like I say it's going to be a lot more because like Ricky Gervais is going to be doing his thing and Tina Fey is going to be doing her thing, and it's just going to be like clashing, and it sounds like I don't know about that. Anyway, until next week, we'll see you then.